Do you think the growth of this penumbra structure, as you call it, is a sort of natural part of the evolution of the democratic process? Or is it an insidious process whereby special interest groups can exert far more authority on government through narrow channels, and therefore the public interest will not be so well represented?
That's an extremely interesting and important question, and that's one I might add that all of our three speakers in our conference today are also going to be addressing. Maybe as a first cut on that, I guess I would say that it's indeterminate. If in fact what one gets is a diversity of ideas and views, that's the classical John Stuart Mill sort of competition of ideas, which of course is the essence of what most of us think of the democratic tradition. Unfortunately, the emergence of the penumbra of power tends to privilege those with the resources to make themselves known particularly easily. There are technological changes, and I'll just briefly later. Professor Abelson will, after 2:00, will in detail begin to talk about this. But technological changes, such as podcasting, such as streaming video, such as in-house broadcasting studios, wiring, teleconferencing, the coming of the internet, all kinds of changes, of technological changes, particularly recently, have begun to create important barriers to entry and also advantages to those who have, who have large scale and who have large budgets. The expansion of essentially of the theater, the stage of discussion from the local to the global, does create a dynamic where those who have large resources and large policy networks have particular advantages. So there's a concentration, and there's there are asymmetries, important asymmetries. So broadly, I think the dynamic probably reinforces the free trade system or the open trading system, which I personally think that's an important positive. But that said, in terms of it privileges the large institutions, probably particularly the large think tanks, and they are looming larger and larger in the Washington idea industry, and Professor Abelson will talk more about that.
Thank you, Professor Kent Calder. My name is Konno, former government official. Well, thank you very much indeed. Very interesting observation you shared with us. One thing which struck me was that very visible high level of activity of Koreans in Washington. It seems that is one major message you're trying to convey to us. Mm-hmm. My question is, what is their objective? What kind of messages they want to convey to Washington policymakers? Is it just in competition vis-a-vis Japanese, or do they have broader national strategic objective? Or if yes, what are they? Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I know that Professor Soya also is a specialist on Korea, and so I hope he may chime in a little on this as well. I guess I would say that one should differentiate between national objectives, the things that I think are driven from Seoul, and the things that are driven from the various local communities, civil society communities in the United States. And there's some degree of difference. I mean, generally they reinforce one another, but I think on some of the historical issues and so on, the local communities often are out ahead and more insistent than Seoul. And although it's hard to know what the interrelationship there is. One that Korea pushed through very strongly for, of course, was the Chorus Agreement, the free trade agreement, which took, it's the largest free trade agreement that the United States has with any country. And it took, maybe 5 years or so to negotiate, and then it took 3 or 4 years additional, 5 years or so to ratify. So it was not an easy process. That's one major focus.